Okay, third section, measurement. Some new elements coming up, incrementality tests, making them easier. In YouTube, what's happening there?
So essentially, again, Google's recognizing that it's getting harder and harder to measure what we're seeing. I mean, we saw this first with the evolution from universal analytics to GA4, and that first step in the journey of things are quite complicated now. We need to be able to match, we need to be able to model. But Google is also making it so it's not just reliant on their attribution. They do a huge amount already sort of externally. Often when you're working with the LCS teams, they'll support you with like regression modeling testing and geographic lift studies and all of those components, as well as then the default A/B testing that's available within the interface. And what they're doing is they're making it so that it's more available from a self-serve perspective. So better metrics shown in the interface. So looking at things like search lift or number of lifted searches coming into the interface as just a column. So you can see on your YouTube activity, how many brand searches did you actually upload? But also from the testing component, allowing you to do more rigorous testing yourself and actually see the impact this activity is happening. It's really an extension of Google recognizing that, yes, this is complicated and we still need to be able to provide answers to say, has this worked, has this not?
This is really answering many people's pain points, which is that.
Exactly.
It's impossible to measure all this stuff without launching separate tools, separate projects.
Yeah.
So
even as something as apparently quite simple as measuring the impact on brand searches, it's like we've been doing that for decades. It's just interesting now that it's finally finally built in.
The approach as well that we've been taking over this time has become less robust almost because there's more and more data gaps.
Sure.
So this almost helps to circumvent that as well by saying, well, sure, you could have done it this way, you could have used audiences, you could have taken that approach and you could have got a sense of this, but now you can't do that as accurately.
No.
There's so much cookie drop off all of those components. So instead they're saying, well, we'll do it for you on our backend data and just surface that.
you can almost sense that Google, looking at the uptake of GA4 and the kickback against how hard it is to get what you want out of it, and that they need to get back on the front foot in terms of serving up measurement solutions that people can actually use and are actually powerful. So they're getting back into the measurement game. Meridian, MMM, Google's MMM tool. Some new upgrades announced at GML. What's Google unleashing?
It's better integrations with their tool and better ease of access. Once again, I've mentioned great leveling of everything. It's just making sure that more people can affordably run MMM studies. They can do econometrics, and making it so that, again, people can best understand the impacts of their performance marketing. So Meridian generally as a tool has a really unique advantage compared to a lot of other MMM products in that it can see the available query volume that's out there. So Google is sharing some of that first party data that previously they would never share. So by be able to identify, well, what is the available headroom in some of these areas? What could it have done if you were to spend more? And it's almost just integrating a bit of that outside of just the default spend, diminishing returns, revenue component.
So Meridian is getting easier to use. It still requires a kind of like API access.
Is there any, if you're a retailer or if you're anybody, should everyone be doing MMM now? Can everyone do it with a bit of effort?
Not everyone. So no, if you're only running one channel,
well, obviously,
why bother? Even if you're not running sort of too much complexity in it. But if you do have a significant amount of spend going through, and even across two channels, and you want to actually understand what the impact is, it is worthwhile doing. I think one of the key things that they're bringing in is the scenario planner as well. So you can sort of use that data and say, right, well, if I wanted to do this, what do you think would happen? And so that's quite a big change to it as well, where it's no longer having to say, right, well, these are the data points we've got, here's the curves we've got, let's now calculate what that would be. It's doing the heavy lifting on that for you. So it certainly is a lot more accessible for smaller businesses. I would still say it's not always going to be worthwhile doing, because there is still, even though it's easier, it is still incredibly complicated, and there's still a lot going into it. And it's only as robust and reliant as the data you feed it. So if you feed it incorrect data, you're going to get incorrect results.
So there's a cost, isn't there? Well, obviously there's a cost, but it can be a significant cost of preparing the data to feed it.
Yeah, and it's definitely streamlined those, but they're not zero.
No.
And again, if you're looking at a single channel, you already have the MLM for that. That's just your business revenue.
Yeah.
So again, it's about understanding how you build that further, and it just relies on having good and varied data. And if you don't have that, it's not worthwhile doing.
Cool.
Okay.
Because we see MMM as just one of the methods of determining where you should be spending the budget.
Yeah, it's probably the most advanced.
Yes.
But and not disruptive, but it isn't the most robust.
No.
So interesting about scenario planning in LLM, because actually GA4 is also getting upgrades in this area, also kind of aimed at similar problems, questions that businesses have.
Yeah.
Where should they invest?
Yeah, it's helping bring more decisions again for different channels, I think, which is the key one. So this is not just a scenario planner for what you're running on your Google Ads, but it's going to be integrating with different media platforms as well and putting that data into there. I think it's the whole change from UA to GA4 was a controversial one, but the base that GA4 is built on allows it to do things like this in conjunction with the data matching, data modeling. It gets it in a much better position for actually understanding, again, sort of more closely aligning, not truly with business impacts like you'd have with MMM. It's not going to do as good of a job of understanding what your baseline is. And it also doesn't have the distinctions that you have in knowing, is this trademark or brand activity? Is this generic and scalable? GA4 still doesn't have that. But what it does have is a view of everything that happens on your website, where it came from and what that user journey looks like, and how different channels have interacted going through to that point of purchase.
Essentially something of a holy grail for advertisers.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's good, which is the other challenge. Because it is a projection report, it's, again, we've mentioned about things about being as good as the data you give it. It's only going to be as accurate as the data that is then pulled into it by parties willing to share that data. So it will be interesting to see whether or not Google gets agreements with Meta to actually then share this false data into the platform. But fundamentally, it's like a lot of changes going into it to also allow it to have better offline conversion imports. So even if there isn't that direct integration, you being able to pass in data to say, this is what we've seen taking place elsewhere, is going to be a big one.
Okay, and finally for this measurement section, PMAX channel breakdown, it's here.
Yep.
It's available. Something that anyone optimizing PMAX has been wanting for a long time.
Yeah, I just feel bad for that guy who made the scripts, who did it for us, who made lots and lots of money selling it. But no, this is, I mean, again, this is something people wanted from the start, and it's something that realistically should have been there. We've seen it. It's quite an open beta. It is an open beta. There's a lot of people on that list, and it is incredibly valuable. But it's essentially giving us insights that ideally we would have had from day one.
Yeah.
It's really interesting in what it breaks down and what it shows you. But fundamentally, you can see how are the channels within your Performance Max campaign performing? How much volume do they have? How much have they spent? What conversion value have they produced? You can calculate the ROAS by channel as well. It is still in that single channel view. It is still embedded within Google Ads. So you can't necessarily see how that would then tie in something like in your scenario planner, but you can see cross network within that, so you can get a sense of the overall investment.
If you don't like how it's allocating the budget, what can you do about it?
Not a whole lot yet, but there is more controls, or there are planned to be more controls coming to the channel splits. So we'll see what happens with that. But at the moment,
you can push on with standard shopping, for example.
You could push on with standard shopping, which I do recommend to some advertisers. If you fundamentally, and Google actually will recommend this themselves, depending on who you speak to at Google. But if you don't want to serve ads across the whole inventory, they'll say, well, don't use PMax. It's not the product for you. A lot of the time, PMax, I get what it's meant to be trying to do. And in a lot of instances, it works really well. But it isn't for everybody.
There's another practical thing. If it's not, for example, showing enough video, like, well, let's launch demand gen or push and budget over to try to see if that will go further up the funnel.
Yeah, but also given that it's meant to be trying to maximize your incremental ROAS.
Yes.
theoretically, the only reason why it wouldn't be serving enough video is because your video creative isn't suited for driving revenue. So if you've taken the same branding or consideration video and just plugs that into Performance Max, it's not going to convert as well. So it's going to prioritize other channels that convert better.
So then the action is make better videos, or perhaps PMax has got it wrong.
Also, and it can be the option. These tools and platforms are not infallible. You know, they can make mistakes, but given that you'll be able to see your ROAS that's coming through the activity, and again, it could be volatile. The main thing that we've seen from this is that by far the majority of volume is still just going through shopping.
Even though, I don't know how long PMax has been around, a couple of years, right? Maybe longer. But you still regard it as a kind of experiment. We still regard it as an experimental, new, unknown thing.
I would still view it as sort of being somewhat volatile.
Yeah.
As in the actual product itself is changing constantly.
Yes.
There's new features coming out. Features are improving over a period of time. So something you tested 6 months ago may now actually work if it didn't work previously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't have the same control that some advertisers want. And it's potentially never going to reach that stage fully. So when we're looking at it from that perspective, yeah, it's a different tool. And it is constantly changing, and there are still issues with it at times. So you do still get surges in display clicks where someone set up a fraudulent website and they want to just get as much money from Google. It is something that Google is battling and actively fighting against.
Yeah.
And for the most part, that sort of thing does get things sorted.
So this is not what it was like when it was started. So when it started, it was with no negative keywords, no brand inclusions, no brand exclusions. It was very, very unclear on how it was allocating budget between asset groups. So, you know, all of that has been fixed, but still it's fast moving. Product.
I mean, it's the fact that search terms are still in beta as well.
Yes.
Search terms and channel splits are still in beta. It is clearly still, I don't know if a work in progress is a fair way to assess it, but it's definitely still in development. So, you know, we may have the 1.0 release of this, but there's still more to do.
Yeah, that's how we see it.